What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Had a week off, a wonderful week off. Got to enjoy a nice weekend up in the Smoky Mountains with my dad for Father's Day, and it was a great time. Basically, we managed to get a Millionaire Maker winner, our third Millionaire Maker winner of the last year, I think, for the U.S. Open. So, huge shout out to the PGA team we got going on. Loving that. Give you guys some time to get in here. Looking at Nashville. This is the 2021 race. Don't really care about that one as much. Kyle Larson went crazy in the last gen car, though. We're looking at this race. So, let's start off here with, just an overview of the track. So, this is a 1.3 mile long track, of course. 300 laps scheduled on the docket here. Now, we may not run all these laps. Race is set to start at 7 o'clock, and it looks like we have some rain coming in. Last time I checked, around 10 or so, 40-50% coverage of rain. Not sure what's going on with that completely, but hey, we'll see how that goes. Might get rain shortened a little bit. There might be some delays. But last year in this race, of course, we had a few lightning holds. Big thing I want to go over here, guys, is this prop right here. This prop right here. Total cautions 10.5. That is the most that we've seen all year, even over Talladega and Daytona. Now, those cautions, of course, are way worse. I mean, they take out way more people. Here, got your 1, 2, 3 car spins. Or as we saw in Xfinity, we could have some awful restart wrecks. I mean, there's not as much talent in the Xfinity series, obviously, compared to the Cup series, but still 10.5. That's huge. In the last 2 seasons, we've been here twice now. They introduced it to Cup series in 2021. In both those races, they had 10 and 11 cautions. So, we saw just an awful truck race and an even worse Xfinity race when it came to just people losing on the restarts, because people lose their mind over these restarts. They just do. They absolutely lose their mind because there's only 2 ways you can really gain track positions at this track. This is very much a one-groove racetrack. Super hard to pass the leader. The control car and restarts tend to just, run away with it, especially if you have some beneficial damage to your rear, like AJ Allmendinger yesterday. That was hilarious to see. He just ran away with it with a huge aero advantage, the best wreck ever for him. But yeah, there's only 2 ways you can really gain positions here. First and foremost, going to be in the pits. If we're looking at all these cautions, that's a lot of pitting these guys got to do. Now, the tire wear isn't really that bad here. We saw that last year. The tire wear is kind of nothing. So we should see a lot of it's hard to pass, but the field should get shaken up quite a bit with differing pit strategies. Like we saw Kligerman try to do yesterday. And yeah, guys taking 2 tires, no tires, just getting gas, whatever, towards the end, because, again, the tire fall off is not that crazy. And then the second way is these restarts. Those restarts were insane yesterday. Even last year, we saw guys like Ross Chastain grab several spots off like the first turn of a restart, just going crazy in there. And of course, Chastain this week, he gets an easy restart to start this because he is on the pole. So good thing about the pole here, this is very similar to Gateway, which might want to add, they just recently added Gateway as well, the Cup Series. And really, it's the only track that's like Nashville. It's very similar to Nashville. 1.25 miles in the intermediate package, and, very similar number of laps and a similar, inside lane dominant, follow the leader, can only gain spots on pit road, and just on these crazy restarts. Very similar tracks. So we like to look to Gateway, which just happened, 2 races ago. After it was before Sonoma, so it's really the last track like this that we've been to. But yeah, this we had a good amount of cautions at Gateway, but 10.5, this is kind of crazy. And then looking at these winning teams, of course, I actually wanted to point out Ford also, this is the worst number I've seen all year. We've kind of been on the fuck Ford train at these intermediate tracks, although at Gateway, they kind of got it figured out. They're like plus 300. They look decent, but this week they just look bad. They have nothing for Chevy and Toyota. I'd say this line isn't the best. I think JGR should be the favorite here. They certainly are. Truex a favorite to win. Then probably Hendrick, but Hendrick's kind of getting some respect because Larson, Byron, doing a lot of winning this season. Yeah, we get it. But Trackhouse also, huge number for them because Chastain on the pole with the number 1 pit stall. It's massive here. And then 23XI also just the Toyotas last year were absolutely dominant. We go to just looking at this race again. Hamlin started on the pole. It wasn't the fastest car, so these weren't really like that deserved. Like he got them all kind of for free for the most part, but was able to hold in there, get a good finish, scored way more than anyone else. Toyota, Kyle Busch, he used to drive for Toyota last year. Started in the back, ended up leading laps, like charged all the way through here. An average running position is 7th, despite starting in the rear. A really good run from Kyle Busch. Again, another JGR guy. Chase Elliott gifted a win at the very end. A little bit Mickey Mouse kind of, but Kurt Busch and 23XI Toyota equipment end up finishing second here. Got Bubba in that car looking good again this week. Cindric, very surprising good run from him. He's like the one for it really stuck out. But then Truex, he got taken out at the very end like Kyle Busch, but he was the best car. He was the one guy that stuck out as like being like amazing. Like every single session, he was moving up constantly. He started back in 10th, was pushing for the lead by the end of stage 1. Like he's the only guy that could really like figure out how to like pass cars and do stuff here at this track. So, and look at the fast laps also just hogged by Toyota. Toyota just crushed here. Hendrick, Elliott got the win and all, which is great. But I mean, other than that, Larson kind of a no-show. Didn't lead any laps despite starting 3rd. Where's old Willie B here? I don't even know. That's how much he was wrecked out kind of early. Not even that early, just like towards the end. He was just part of that carnage. So you can see the carnage. Like there was like 10 wrecks or so, but most of these people finished most of their laps. Only Bowman was really taken out. A little bit different than the Xfinity race where a bunch of guys were taken out kind of early. Just going to be these small, constant shufflings of the fields. And it's not absolutely guaranteed to be a wreck fest. It could, with it being the Cup Series, there's a lot more talent in this series. I don't think it's necessarily going to look like Xfinity and trucks that we saw of just nonstop cautions. There is a chance they do run this thing green, and you may want to make some lineups for that. Like Truex is probably just going to dominate if that's the case because he just had insane long run speed. But if something like that happens, I'd probably fade the severe place differential guys because those guys are going laps down. How many people even finished on the lead lap? A good amount here. Yeah, a good amount of people finished on the lead lap because of the constant restarts at the end and the free passes and all that. But I think we saw 16 dudes in Xfinity in the lead lap at the end because they had kind of a green flag run. Even at caution at the end, but still it was like 15, 16 dudes. And if this goes green at all whatsoever, it's probably what we can expect here. So yeah, hold on. Let's look at this practice here. So these are the 3 top cars in practice, I think, by far. Yeah, Tyler Reddick, who had the fastest lap, but it was at the very end, literally a qual run. I don't think anyone else really took a qual run. Maybe Chase Elliott here, but yeah. So he kind of boosted his numbers a little bit, but still was really sporty. Chastain, of course, ended up getting the pole very fast, but Truex dude is a freaking beast, especially towards the end of practice. You can look at it this way, a long run speed is sick. So yeah, these are the three guys. Poor Reddick has to start in second, which is an awful place to start here because starting on the outside, it's almost better to start third, honestly. But of course, Justin freaking Haley is starting third. God, what a qualification from him after doing nothing in practice too. Just one hell of a lap from him. Then actually two hell of a laps, getting into the top 10 to make that second round. And then end up posting that P3. But Chastain's lap in that second stint of qualifying was just amazing. He destroyed everyone in the field there. So I came into this week wanting to play Haley. I don't think I get to, man. Nah, this is maybe on FanDuel, but I just can't. He's so cheap, but don't worry, there are plenty of great cheap place differential plays that are kind of obvious. This range right here just makes it so you can afford anyone on this slate. This is not, so we have 300 laps. And whenever you see 300, 400, 500 laps, we see guys start to reach into the 11Ks. Larson just priced up way higher than anyone else here. But yeah, we do see, we have 6 guys, 10K or above, a bit more than average, but it's to be expected in a race where the top dominators are going to matter a whole bunch. But with these guys down here having so much value, like LaJoy dead last, 5,300. With him finished like his worst finish in the intermediate track so far this season's 21st. It's going to open the door wide up, and we're going to be able to play essentially anyone that we want. So it's kind of that's kind of the slate for you. Can even get 3 dominators and just do some punts, but you can actually double punt. And with guys like Bubba, who are really fast and could dominate, even win this race, like you could easily get 4 dominators in. And it seemed like Bell, starting 22nd, he'd be like really expensive place differential, but 9.4. I know he's not been the best intermediate tracks this season for Toyota, but still, it's a very viable place differential sort of play. So you got like a wide buffet of options that you don't really have to struggle to get, especially since the Kyles not looking very good in practice, either of them. So, starting off with Kyle Larson up here up top, might as well hop right into this. So in 2021, he goes sicko mode. This is in the last gen car, of course. Once he takes over, his average running position is literally first. 264 laps led. He was gone. No one could touch him. Every restart belonged to him. Just an amazing show from him. With the next gen car, that wasn't really the case here. The fastest car was Truex, but he had a hard time getting up to the front. Even when he got up to the front, it would get mixed up with these rain delays, constant restarts, all that pit strategy. So one thing about this track is we could see a guy out there leading for a long stretch that does not have anywhere near the fastest car. They just have clean air, and that's something we got to expect here. But Larson's still getting the odds appreciation in here. So you've got what they opened at, and then this is what they're currently at. It's about the same, but Kyle Busch 15-1. They're not chasing this gateway performance much whatsoever. They really aren't. This 21st for him was actually a really good run, as where Larson has 4th last year was kind of non-existent. Did not really factor into the race at all. Didn't lead a lap, and you could say the same thing about Gateway last week. Or not last week. Last week there wasn't a race. The race before that was a road course at Sonoma. But the last intermediate track that we've been to, Gateway, the most similar track to Nashville, he finished 4th, which is a good finish for him. But most of that race he was running, his average running position, 11th. He was very much an invisible man out there until the very end, snuck in a good finish. But he had, looking at the dom points here, Kyle Busch hugged 44% of the Dominator points. Larson a mere 1.6%. Selfish Kyle Busch, so selfish. And then Blaney also. Good pop-off performance from him the last 2 intermediate tracks we've been to. Someone to just keep an eye out, even though the Fords are seriously down bad right now. We got expensive Kyle Larson, who at this race last year and at Gateway, our most recent intermediate track, just a non-factor. Did nothing at Charlotte either. He's been dominating like the short tracks and whatnot, but I don't think he deserves. He's Kyle Larson. I guess he deserves to be the most expensive, but a 400 gap over Kyle Busch, who I also think is a bit overpriced here. Like, I feel like Truex should be up in the spot just with how he's ran, with how you can see over here the lead laps per 300. Hamlin, Truex. Really just JGR has been awesome so far this season at these intermediate tracks. These guys probably should have been the actual like favorites, but I understand the Larson. Bush, of course, it's just because he just crushed a Gateway, so I get it. I understand the pricing, but probably looking to get off of Larson and Bush, the two Kyles, just slow in practice. Larson, I'm not as worried about as Kyle Busch. There's really not a lot of speed we saw in his car, and he didn't put up a good qualifying run either. So, I mean, they start on the inside line H, which is cool, but they've got a ways to go, and it is quite hard to pass here. So they better find some restarting speed or get some really good pits. And then Martin Truex Jr., odds-on favorite, tied with Ross Chastain, but coming in this week, he's the favorite. I guess Lars is the favorite. This is just respect right here. Really, Truex is the guy everyone thinks of. He was the best car here last year. Forget these finishes. They're lies. Like, yeah, he finished 22nd, but, I mean, he had the best average running position of anyone in the race. That was literally him getting taken out the very, very end, along with Kyle Busch. Ignore that crap. Martin Truex Jr., obviously, he's got the car to beat here, based on what we saw at practice. The books agree. His ownership, it could vary quite a bit here. I think that people will end up loading up on him, especially in the more expensive contests. There's a lot of different ways you can go with this, because we've seen, at most of these tracks here, we've seen the books kind of just go all over Denny Hamlin. This week they are all over one Mr. Martin Truex Jr., with it being a night race, which is a specialty of his. Just does amazing work at night race, especially tracks that are like hot like this one. It's going to be 90 degrees out there, so slippery. Again, part of probably what's causing the caution prop to be up so high, and we kind of saw similar races last year. But that, along with just a changing track as the night goes through, especially with like some rain in the forecast, that's been Martin Truex Jr.'s bread and butter. Just managing, conserving his equipment, his tires, and just maintaining speed, doing what he needs to do to go out there. If he finds the lead, he is going to dominate a huge chunk of this race. It's got to be the favorite to win, in my opinion. And tied with Chastain, I understand it completely. He does not have like the stats, right? So has not led laps here, really, or just even intermediate tracks overall. It's been more of, these guys, but I can't stress enough how important that pole position is and getting that first pit stall. He is definitely going to be running up front a good amount today. Of course, he's much riskier being, Ross Chastain, being hyper aggressive. But if there are going to be a bunch of restarts this week, why would you not play Ross Chastain? He's like the best restarter on the NASCAR Cup Series that we have. So also a cheap little price for him too, but we'll get to him. Martin Truex Jr., of course, I think he's going to be chalked. It's either going to be him or Chastain as the most expensive player on the slate right now. It's really close for me. I think it's going to end up being Chastain. It's so easy to slot the leader in here, but coming into this week, I think most people were thinking, Martin Truex Jr., probably the top dog to win yet again, the points leader. I mean, also a very safe and consistent finisher this season. And at a track with so much carnage expected, these safe drivers, the Truexes, the Hamlins, the Harvicks, the Haleys of the world, because Haley had the lowest incident rate last year of like any driver, I think. Even the Dillons, who I'm huge on. These guys are going to be important. Just avoiding wrecks is everything. And these super aggressive drivers like, Chastain may come back to bite you. But at the same time, being aggressive on restarts, we saw it last year. Like it's so beneficial to you if you can do that. So it just depends on how you want to play this slate. Hamlin, again, another JGR Toyota you've got to consider. Of course, this year he is, he's the best. He was the best at driver rating. Of course, kind of messed up because Truex did get knocked down there. It probably was just Truex over Hamlin, but Hamlin was able to stay up in the front all race this season. One of the best average running positions, average finishes at the intermediate tracks he'd been to, and just the leader. He led the most laps last year. Of course, you can knock this number down a good amount. Like, obviously, Truex is a better play, I think, than Hamlin for sure. because a few of these numbers are kind of inflated. But fast laps at intermediate tracks this season, Hamlin is a leader, and that's not something that we have seen, but he's been consistently up there and battling and doing his thing. So he's someone that you absolutely cannot forget about. Winner at Kansas, of course, the second last week at Gateway. These guys are expensive, but you definitely got to get your JGR Toyotas. Missing out on them last year just ruined the slate for you. I think they've got it again this year. You got to go for these guys. Chase Elliott at 10-4, finally getting priced up again. Vegas not liking him very much at all. Qualified 14th. His practice times were like fine, better than Larson's even. Got a little bit more place differential. I probably like him a bit more than Larson overall, but I don't think he has anywhere near the upside that Larson has, because Larson, is a great crew chief, could come out here and dominate this race again. I wouldn't be that surprised, but I would be pretty surprised if Chase Elliott does, because we haven't really seen it from him. Of course, he's missed a few of these races. Would love to see how he ran at Gateway, but he was suspended for that race. Las Vegas, he was injured for that race. Charlotte taken out early. So we've got Auto Club from way back when, then Kansas when he was just coming back from injury. So we don't know a whole lot about Chase Elliott, but of course won here last year. But this stat right here, I'm kind of worried about. Intermediate percentage of laps finished. He's just had a ton of wrecks and carnage go his way at a carnage track. It's a little scary of an ask if you ask me, but there's some place differential to be had there. But at 10-4, you got to go out there and lead, I think, which he can do. It's not, I wouldn't be horribly shocked, but I would be way more shocked than if like Larson went out there and did stuff, And then Byron, who's looking like the fastest of the Hendricks for sure, starting up in 5th, good chance to dominate. He's been, a staple at the top of these, the top 5 of these intermediate tracks. He's been just really good this season so far. $10,100 price kind of coming down, cheaper than Elliott. That's kind of weird to me. That's like really weird. If you go over and look at his stats here, I've got it blown up so you guys can see. So hasn't led at Nashville yet at all, but at overall intermediate tracks, he has by far the most. Kind of inflated because he I think it was Las Vegas or something. He just led the whole thing. But still, he's constantly up there. If you have the Dominator points tab here, like a Gateway, solid chunk of Dominator points. Charlotte, solid chunk. Dover, Darlington, like he's always getting his. Las Vegas, of course, just crushed. Auto Club, not so much, but RIP Auto Club. He's just going to be a good, solid play, someone you don't want to forget about. 10-1, good reduced price for him. I do like Byron a bit. I can't get as much of him as I want to because I want to go pretty heavy on Truex is like the one chalk guy I really want to focus on, even in like GPP, because I think he is going to win. I think he's going to dominate and win. That is my assertion. It's a pretty safe assertion to make. And so I'm going to go just heavily over on Truex. And that means I got to, suck it and go under on Hamlin. Busch, certainly. Larson also. And I don't really mind it with those slow practice times, but that's just the way I'm attacking it. And then Byron, I want to get as much of him as I can, but I'm really focusing on attacking these Toyotas this week. And then Ryan Blaney. So this is kind of a chase game, right? Like, the practice speed is not anything like we saw at Gateway. And I know that Gateway is the most similar track to Nashville here, but he dominated the absolute crap out of Gateway, compared to how he's been doing. And in Charlotte, he was the top dominator. So the last 2 intermediate tracks, he's been, he's kind of come out of nowhere and done big things. So, something to look at there. Really the only time all season he's like done stuff. Charlotte, his first win in like quite a while, but all last season he was like a constant top 10, top 5 dude, just could never really break through with a win. But yeah, these last 2 races at intermediate tracks have been good for him, but Vegas is not buying it at all. They're not chasing this 21. And took a bunch of practice laps and just did not really have the speed. Kind of focusing on practice a lot more heavy this week than others because we got that full practice. We got like the 40, 50 practice laps to go off of. So Blaney, we've been seeing him in the low nines, even high eights this season. Priced up a bit, of course, gets more laps on the board, but also just recent performance. I don't think a lot of people will go to him seeing these odds. I mean, his ownership could, go up to like 20% or so, but he's just sandwiched between some real chalk here. I kind of see him just being like a single entry sort of alternative dominator sort of play. And then hopping to Ross Chastain, obviously a huge hitter, has the number one pit stall, which is massive here. Kind of talked already about how we're feeling about him. For GPP, yeah, he's hyper aggressive on these restarts. Probably the best restarter we got, but doesn't have to be to start off the race. He was able to save that equipment, chill out in clean air. Now, is there going to be another lap one caution like we saw in Xfinity yesterday? Who knows? Or a lap 5 caution like in trucks? Not entirely sure, but even still, even if there's like a super early caution, he could still like easily just keep doing what Larson did in 2021, just constantly restarting first and, floating away with it because it's very easy to restart off the pole position here. Yeah, not a whole lot to say about Chastain. If you want to fade someone just like from a straight up Carnage perspective that's really high owned, I would much rather fade Chastain than Truex because I think Truex is like really built for it. And Chastain, he's just in a great position, obviously. Like, I'm going to have a good amount of him. Don't get me wrong. But like, he hasn't led many laps here whatsoever. I think he's led 4 in like 2021. He led 4. This season, averaging 19 with 9 fast laps. Those aren't the craziest numbers. But yeah, he does have speed this week for sure. It's really shown. So I'll probably match the field or something, or not be too crazy with Chastain. I'll focus more on going over on Truex, but he does have a pretty decent crash risk, especially towards the end of the race. But usually Crashtain likes to crash other guys and not himself. So if he does that, that's badass. We like that. But I'm not going to go too super heavy on him. I expect him to be very popular because he's 9.6 and a dominator. And I think it's going to be very easy for a ton of people to slot him in. I could see him even being over 40% owned in GPP. Moving on down to Christopher Bell, just place differential. He has been, the JGR Toyotas have been awesome intermediate tracks this season, but Bell has been kind of doo-doo, I'm not going to lie. Kansas, you can throw that one out because he wrecked immediately. He was like ran into. You can just do that. I don't care. But even still, he's done really nothing. He's done nothing at this track also. No lead laps. A whopping 1 fast lap in 2 races. You're just playing this for the pure place differential. But if you play like a Reddick starting second, a Chastain, Bubba is so cheap. Go all the way down to LaJoie. Like, it's so easy to slot in someone like Christopher Bell as like your third most expensive guy at 9.4. That's just the nature of the slate with how many awesome punts there are for like really cheap. So Christopher absolutely in play. Even if he just, moves up 10, 12 spots, he could get a decent value like for a third driver. Yeah, he could certainly outscore guys like Chastain and Reddick if they go backwards like whatsoever. I'm more inclined to take Harvick over Bell for my place differential personally because Harvick to me is a much safer driver, but can't skip over Mr. Tyler Reddick here. Of course, he had this qualifying lap way faster than everyone else, 0.2 faster, but he was trimmed out for qualifying, whatever. The long run speed, of course, goes to Truex here. The problem with Reddick is that he's starting second, and this is just a terrible track to start second at. We saw it before, but it was Kyle Busch starting second with Almirola on the pole. I think Chastain is a great restarter. It would be an absolute miracle, I think, if Reddick somehow manages to beat Chastain off the rip. But there is that chance. I think that chance is kind of slim, but we've also seen good amount of wrecks from him, and his 2 runs at Nashville so far have been like the definition of mid. Now, that was in the RCR Chevy that Kyle Busch is in this week. Another reason why I'm not too huge on Kyle Busch and don't want to chase him, because he's in a car that, is very mid last season, very mid the season before this track. And this week, again, very mid. Like Reddick ran 18th, 19th, like all race. That was just what he did. He was a complete non-factor at these races. So I'm definitely all about fading Reddick here. If he burns me, he burns me. I just think that Chastain gets it done early on. And then, I think Reddick will certainly stick around. He's a great driver. I love Reddick. He's also like cheap. He could, like on FanDuel or something, he could just finish like 4th or 5th and, score well that way. I'm just going to put way more eggs into the Chastain basket, the Truex basket. And in order to do that, I got to not play some of these guys. And I will likely pivot on to Kevin Harvick, So here's the thing with Kevin Harvick. The safest driver, like, period, I would say over the last, 10 years, certainly, between him and Hamlin. Just the safest when it comes to safely and consistently finishing top 10. Truex, you could also throw in that discussion for sure. And it's all about driving style. These guys are older, they're passive, they're smart, they know who to race around, they know when to fold them. These younger guys don't really know how to fold them, and that's how you end up with like an Xfinity race from yesterday. Harvick at 88, he's not going to dominate. I'm just going to say that right now. He is not going to dominate. But if you're looking at a third, maybe even a fourth guy in your lineup, and certainly in cash, like, he's such a consistent, awesome finisher. Just overall, pretty much always a top 10 bet. And, his practice times are like decent for Ford at least. I don't mind going Harvick, having him go from 17th to like 9th, maybe top 5 upside if there's like extra carnage. Just a safe little play. And in cash, like, that is a super lock in cash for me personally. But even in like FanDuel, DraftKings, I don't mind him. He's cheap enough to where, I just don't mind him. I think he scores like decently. I think he has a decent shot at like a top 7, top 8 finish. And I think that'll get the job done from 17th. Just at this price point. Now, if he was priced in the 9Ks like he had been, like for short tracks, then yeah, no, I'm not going there. But not worried about his win odds because I don't think he wins. I think he grabs like a handful of fast laps, finishes like 8th, and just scores well and safely. And this, again, with 10 cautions coming up, I think this is going to be a slate where you just want your guys to survive the race. And I think Harvick is more likely to do that than like anyone. So move on down to Joey Logano, super slow in practice, really unfortunate for him. 8,600 so cheap, but Fords just are kind of a super avoid this week. Now, his ownership, I think, is going to be low. His projections are going to be low. So an optimizer contest, if you want, to just pick a guy to like plant your flag on as like your differential sort of guy, then I guess Logano could do that. Single entry to be a little different. Starting in 4th, again, the same problem as Reddick, starting on the outside groove, but he's starting far enough back where he's just in that like giant mix of guys being very aggressive, trying to get up there on the restart. Pretty much the danger zone like we saw in Xfinity and trucks, where it's really that 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th guys. Those guys, as the race goes on and on, they get a little bit more desperate. Now, it's way less likely for those giant restart wrecks to happen in Cup, of course, but just not really liking Logano, even though his price is quite reduced. I think that keeps his ownership at least somewhat decent. If he was priced like he has been in the 9Ks, he'd be like 10% owned, 8% owned. Then I might be interested, but just seeing nothing from Logano this week. I'm going to safely ignore him for Bubba Wallace, who is in an amazing car that has been awesome at intermediate tracks. Gateway, he was taken out. You can scratch that one. I will gladly do this because even Darlington, you could throw that one in there. He finished 5th there as well. Just all top 5s, top 5 speed as well in practice. In the car that Kurt Busch put 2nd here last year, and even Bubba is 23, finished 12th last year. He ran fine. It's a good track for him. I do not mind me some Bubba at a very, very cheap price. I think he's an awesome like 4th guy to put in your lineup. He makes a lot of things possible, and Brady also is huge on Bubba, says he has upside to win the race. But even if he doesn't win the race, like another 4th, like is just going to be massive, even though he's starting ninth. Now, starting up high is not the worst thing for someone in this range, honestly, because really it's just about avoiding becoming lap traffic going down. And also with how hard it is to pass, like he's going to stay up in the top 10 for a good while, I imagine. And I think he'll push for the top 5 early and often. So 8,400, just a great value for him. Alex Bowman, just nothing. I see nothing. Just the definition of a mediocre play. This is like back when Dale Jr. would be at a non-super speedway track and just, very much carrying the 88 Dale Jr. flag with his look here. He's 8,200, literally like dead minimum or dead medium in salary, sub medium in his practice speeds, and just overall outlook. Like he tends to overfinish, but just not feeling Bowman. There's not really much need to go there when Bubba is just so much better of a play, in my opinion. And I've noticed the last few weeks that Bowman has come in at much higher ownership than projected for some weird reason, and I don't understand it. So if people are going to keep doing that, then cool, I guess. I'm just not on board. Brad Keselowski also. Practice times are fine, whatever, but 70-1 kind of like sticks out here. Just been miserable these intermediate tracks. So the 7th at Auto Club, but man, just nothing here. And also at Nashville, less than nothing. He's actually looked really poor. I would much, much rather take his teammate Chris Buescher, even though he's starting like several spots up higher. Could Keselowski do some, magic tricks with the pit strategy and whatnot? Yeah, I mean, he'll probably shoot for something like that. Could it work out? Maybe. It has not recently, like at all, almost ever. I'm going to save him for the shorter tracks. He's been good at shorter tracks this season. Intermediate tracks, no, we've just seen nothing from him. I'm going to safely move on. Ty Gibbs, also another. Just keep fading him, and when he burns me eventually, when he gets a top 15, I might start like paying attention to him. Yeah, he's in a JGR Toyota, right? Like, that's great. It's good for him, honestly. He lasted how many laps in Xfinity? It was kind of ugly. If you play Ty Gibbs, yeah. If you want to estimate his good performance finally comes here, then more power to you. I'm just not going to be on that train. I have better things to do with my money. Daniel Suarez. Oh, I wanted to play Daniel Suarez coming in here because, Chastain has speed, Trackhouse has speed, and Suarez was showing speed in qualifying, got to the second round of qualifying, and then wrecked his car. He will be starting at the rear. So that's kind of a death sentence for me at this track. Even if his backup's really good, it's so hard to work your way back up without just getting lucky with like pit strategy or something. So came into the slate, wanted to play some Daniel Suarez. Still might play a little bit of him in like single entry as like a contrarian sort of play. I don't mind that, but he's got, minus 30 place differential off the bat, and that really sucks. Chris Buescher, $7,500. I mentioned earlier, I like him a lot better than Keselowski, a lot faster in practice. Just been good, this track type too, like been running around kind of where he's starting at here. So don't mind it. He's been, he's not finished in Nashville race yet. He has definitely been the carnage. And, his odds also dropped from 40 to 80 after qualifying, even though he qualified well and practiced well. So not the best sign for him. Not like I'm way more interested in Stenhouse, obviously, but Buescher is someone I'm just going to not fade. Moving on to Stenhouse, $7,300. I like this play a lot, and there's a reason for it. First off, he's been just great at this track type this season for like his equipment level. This 30-second at Gateway was some bullshit. He just got taken out. He was doing great too. So this is another one that we'll just ignore because it was going to be a good run. Like the thing I like about him here is, he's a dirt guy. Whenever the track's like really hot and there's low levels of grip, I noticed that Stenhouse is great at moving around the track and finding grip and being the first person to find that next line. And he gets a lot of fast laps this way. He's actually like really sneaky with the fast laps for like, a lone kind of guy. Like back in, what was it? 2021. I know it's 2021, but was it Stenhouse racked up? No, it's this one. Stenhouse racked up. Where is he? 25 fast laps here. 25. He just does that like randomly, sort of. He has like just GPP upside. So he's kind of sus for me in cash. I would just like drop down to these guys, even though he's starting low. Like he has a good floor to work with here. But I just like his driving style for this track, like specifically, and I think he's done great. I think his gateway finish will maybe keep people away from him, but that was no fault of his own, really. So yeah, I'm liking me some Stenhouse. He's shown that he is good at this track type. I'm going to go pretty damn heavy on Stenhouse, and I hope that people don't do that. I hope that people just drop down, play, punts and studs. I mean, that's still a pretty good strategy, honestly, with how good some of these plays are, but I will certainly be getting heavy exposure to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ryan Preece is just a good pivot off of Stenhouse. He's actually been doing the best of the Stewart-Haas non-Harvick cars recently. Good runs at Charlotte and Gateway. This track kind of makes sense for him. He's more of a fan of the shorter, flatter tracks. Didn't really show much in practice, though, and he is driving a Ford, so Chase Briscoe has been just utter dog shit. He's been bad. He's been stinky, absolutely stinky intermediate tracks this season, but he's been amazing at the short tracks. And the championship is raced at a short track. I think he just only cares about short tracks, and God, he has been just awful at these intermediate tracks. And based on practice, nothing has changed. This is a full 1,000,000% fade for me. You cannot pay me enough to play Chase Briscoe this week. That is not happening. Austin Cindric, a good finish at Gateway last week, good finish at this track last year. Of course, this was inflated by the fact that he just kind of survived a whole bunch of cautions. Showed nothing in practice, is driving a Ford, so immediately sus based off of that, but not a complete fade. Starts in a decent spot and has a few things going for him, at least, unlike Chase Briscoe. So there's that, I guess. Not going to be a super heavy play, maybe just like a sprinkle. I'll be underweight, but I won't have zero. Allmendinger, the luckiest man on earth after yesterday. So, I mean, look at these odds jump up because he, quote unquote, won the Xfinity race. So he spins and gets damage to his rear, which jacks his spoiler up and makes him the fastest car on the track by like multiple tenths for the rest of the race. And he just flies away with the win. Hey, it was accident damage. I mean, sometimes just luck out like that and you get to accidentally cheat. It wasn't his fault. Took advantage of it and it worked for him. He can't do that again here, but I will say his practice times looked amazing. Did he damage himself in practice here? I don't know, but Colleague clearly brought speed, as we saw with Justin Haley's run, his qual. So there's some speed there. He starts 19th, which is where he finished last year, but he started in the top 10 last year and just kind of fizzled out. Went backwards most of the race despite guys wrecking out in front of him. Just wasn't that great, but this season looked like, he struggled in practice last year. This year, his practice times are looking really great. I think there's a little more upside for Dinger. And of course, he's got, the extra reps from racing Xfinity. That can't hurt. So he's an all right play. Him and Cindric are, kind of all right. I'd rather have Allmendinger because he showed speed, obviously, but they're just fine plays. I'm more focused on some of these plays down lower. Eric Almirola, what a forgettable play. There's like nothing here. He started in the pole and finished fourth here in 2021, but I just don't care. He's driving a shit Ford and he's going to have a shit finish. He's going to come like 23rd and no one's going to care. Don't clip that for when he like randomly wins this, but I'm feeling pretty confident that Eric Almirola is not going to be in the optimal lineup this week. Moving on down to Eric Jones. $6,200. Legacy decided to announce that they are switching to Toyota, and they're still driving Chevys for the rest of the year, so that's kind of awkward. They've clearly struggled this season. Jones has looked significantly slower this season than last season Look at how he did last season at this track type of the same team. Just it's a night and day, honestly. But we're seeing like flashes of that, right? I mean, he legitimately won at Darlington, legitimately, but he has shown absolutely nothing this season. Legacy has had some core members of their staff just up and quit. Jimmy Johnson, it's hard to watch when he attempts to race with this team. Noah, if anyone's been thrown out, it's Noah Gragson. Just look at his finishes. Jesus Christ. He has nothing. He gets absolutely nothing. I think the only guy they would even remotely give a shit about is Eric, and we're seeing it kind of this week. Now, this odds movement is just, I really don't care about this. This is ridiculous, I think. Is he a good play? Yeah, he's like a much better play than all these guys, right? Like, of course. I don't know if I want to pile on to him. I hope he goes super high owned because I just don't believe in legacy like that. And there are other great plays around him. I hope he ends up higher owned than Austin Dillon, who I love this week, because while he showed like nothing in practice, he has 3 top 10s at intermediate tracks this season. And he wrecked at Gateway. That kind of sucks. Wrecked at Las Vegas. But go back and look at all of his finishes in the next gen car. He's a fantastic finisher. This is just what he does. He finishes between 10th and 15th like every race. And that's all he needs to do starting 26th at a $6,000 price tag. That's so cheap. Absolutely loving that. So yeah, Austin Dillon going to be kind of a big play for me. I'll try to go extra overweight on him. He'll get some of my Jones shares, and I really hope that Jones, his practice times make him much higher owned than Austin Dillon. But we'll see. If I'm wrong about that, then oh well, But yeah, moving on to Michael McDowell, who I think is going to be the highest owned of this range because starting 33rd, fresh off of a 10th place finish at Gateway. Yeah, it's hard to refute. He looked fast out there in practice, like pretty damn fast, much faster than Dillon. It's hard to argue this play. This is a good play. This $5,800 for McDowell, who we saw all of last year across this track type. 13th and 17th place finishes here. Typically a safe driver, although he wrecked out or just had really terrible runs most of the intermediate tracks this season until we got to Gateway. But he looked awesome at Gateway. Hopefully he can just kind of keep that going. But yeah, it's going to be hard for me to get over the field with McDowell because I want a lot of like Dillon and stuff. But I will probably still end up being he's probably like the second bit of chalk that I kind of want to devour on the slate with like him and Truex. But hey, hopefully he doesn't get that high owned. But it's gonna be hard for him not to. Let's just be real about this. Haley, I've lamented about Haley here. I came in here wanting to play Haley, but yeah, he's starting third. He's starting third. Maybe on FanDuel, right? Maybe on FanDuel, but even then, he's gonna need to like stay top 10 and have one of like these random pop-offs. Like he occasionally finishes top 5 every now and again. That's what he's gonna have to do. Now he gets track position. He even gets the inside lane to start, which is like awesome for him, right? But I'd just see him moving backwards throughout this race at 5'6". I mean, if he stays in the top 10, he could do it, like we saw in the Xfinity race. Bailey Curry was super fast, started second, and just ran top 5 all race, just had speed. We're not seeing that speed out of Haley here. He just had 2 amazing qualifying laps, which, great for him. On DraftKings, though, that's going to be a fade. I'm sorry, you can't really go there. Harrison Burton, just slow as fuck in practice, like extra slow. Was bad here last year. Just bad at this track type in general, both last year and this year. Starting 31st, just a raw carnage play. Definitely play him because, some of these guys, these high-owned, like, good value plays are just going to eat shit. In the case of, like, the Xfinity race yesterday, every single good value play just ended up eating shit within, like, 3 or 4 laps of each other. Something like that happens, then yeah, Harrison Burton could come through at low ownership. Have him in some like single entries as a contrarian sort of play, but I much prefer him on the shorter tracks. And then this might as well be the bottom, but we'll talk about the scrubs underneath. But Corey LaJoie, wow, does he rate out well? Wow. So he's starting dead last. He will be going to the rear for adjustments, not car replacement, just adjusting some things, but he's already in the rear, so it does not matter. He starts behind Ty Dillon, Brennan Poole, Josh Bilicki, JJ Yaley. He is basically just Brendan Poole from yesterday, and if he has even half the performance of Brendan Poole, just surviving wrecks and just staying alive, which, as you've seen this year, he does a great job of at intermediate tracks with a worst finish of 21st. Shoot, if he just finishes 23rd here, and as projected, and gets to 32, like, that is super value. That's 6x. Like, it's amazing. 5.3, they just made him way too cheap this week. I don't get it because he's been like very solid at this track type. Even at this track, top 20s both runs. Super core play. This also, I think he should be like super high owned, right? Like, I personally would not be shocked if like if I was the only person out there in these lineups, he'd be like 40-50% owned. But for some reason, like these super cheap guys in really good spots just don't go crazy over owned all that often. Like, I could see McDowell, even like Eric Jones, being higher owned than LaJoie when all is said and done. So I'll probably be way overweight on LaJoie. But I just think it's a terrific play. Can't go backwards. Starting dead last, place differential galore at a track with tons of carnage. I mean, what is not to love? He can move up 15-20 spots easily. So yeah, loving me some LaJoie here. And then I basically just hate the rest of this field because Gregson is abandoned. Yeah, do not play Gregson. Todd Gilliland, he's back in the 38. So, very awesome. He had a bad performance at the road course, and really just a few of these races he's been kicked out and sent to the 51 machine, the Cody Ware woman beater car. And obviously he's not going to run well there, right? Because it's a shit car. But back in his front row shit, 15th at Gateway. So I mean, yeah, he's shown some capabilities that he didn't show last year. Starting 27th, though, it's a little bit high for someone with such garbage practice times. Like, when you're slower than JJ Yaley, you got to like reconsider some things. Yeah, I don't know about that one, but yeah, playable. I'd say playable. Gregson, not playable. Todd Gilliland, playable, but you don't really need to go this low. I found like no situations where you have to go lower than Corey LaJoie, really, because you can kind of afford everyone. Ty Dillon, kind of low-key interesting because these finishes, I mean, they're just carnage finishes, but like he's another guy that's kind of Justin Haley-esque, just a safe, conservative finisher. So I would play Ty Dillon in lineups that are constructed around nothing but carnage. That is like my ideal Ty Dillon lineup. If it's like a green flag, Martin Truex Jr. domination, 12 dudes left on the lead lap sort of deal, then yeah, no Ty Dillon. He's going to be like 5 laps down. But if we're going to have like 12 cautions, I don't even mind Ty Dillon. I just, again, don't see the need to go this low. Brendan Poole, love you. You're amazing Xfinity. I'm not playing you in Rick Ware Racing starting 32nd. Nope, that is an absolute no. Sorry. Josh Bilicki, super stinky in practice. There's no reason to play him here. Very bad. We'll go many laps down. And then JJ Yaley starting 29th. Like, you don't even get placed it here. And he will also be going laps down in the Cody Ware woman beating machine. And that does it for the slate. So some overarching things. Again, I like you're probably not going to be super unique, but going like 4 good quality studs, thanks to guys like Bubba being so cheap, even Bell Reddick, Chastain as a core dominator being so cheap. You can get 4 of these guys, or just like maybe 3 in Stenhouse, and then just go in 2 punts. It's an awesome way to set up your lineup. I don't think you're going to be that unique, but that's looking like the best way to make lineups. And then, of course, there's the kind of 2-2-2 sort of deal. If you're going to play some of these guys like Stenhouse, Bubba, I mean, usually 2-2-2 would be like you just get 2 mid-range value sort of guys. But there are a couple of actual like dominators you can sort of get here, mainly like Bubba. Yeah, just I love going to that a bit. And then, of course, you've got your 1 punt sort of way. Like if you're not playing Larson a whole lot, again, there's no need to like punt super low. But I mean, if you just grab like McDowell, LaJoy, you're going to just make an awesome lineup. So again, it's super easy to afford anyone you want. Just make sure you're actually making some stands, doing some cool shit like that. I mean, I told you my stands. You don't have to follow mine because this is just the highest carnage intermediate track there is. So if there's any week to get wild with and play some crazy guy if you think he's going to come in at low ownership, like a great example, Joey Logano 8-6, right? I don't like him, but if there's a whole bunch of added randomness and variance to this race as expected, if you want to just plant your flag on Joey Logano and hope he pops off a little bit, hell yeah, that's a great strategy. Safe driver too, actually. Just a good little contrarian play. I love these contrarian plays on a slate like this. I don't really enjoy gobbling chalk unless it's Truex, because this race just screams Truex to me. And yeah, that'll do it. So let's get those helmets up on top. And of course, if you're new, remember DFSArmy.com, promo code TACO for lifetime 10 bajillion% off, or 10%. Okay, 10% off. Still good. And hell yeah, helmets up, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.